What is up? It's a Figure Hunter, and we have a doozy of a review and discussion tonight. I'm going to talk about from a non-runner perspective, because I primarily only do CrossFit with some running sort of splashed in. And I just released a video about Garmin's training status being not the most helpful. I'll put the description or link in the description below to the video. But it brought up the whole idea that I've been on a training regimen, I'll talk about in a second, that has been more intense than it has been in the past. And so I decided at the beginning of it to start tracking multiple platforms to see who displayed and helped me understand how my training is going over a longer period of time. So we're looking at the 5 major players in the sports watch arena: Suunto, Polar, Garmin, Coros, and Whoop. So those are the 5 major players. I'm not looking at the Apple Watch because the Apple Watch, you actually don't get anything out of the box. You have to compile apps from different places, and it doesn't really even have, you just have to compile all these different apps in order to try to piece together your training. So I just sort of am counting that off. Although Apple Watch does have an app called Sports Tracker, which is the Suunto version of what I'm going to share about today. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. I'm super fired up to be getting a new Haven Athletic sample bag to test, and they have been wildly successful as a super awesome gym bag. But lots of different things coming out, the Airwave mouthpiece. So just stay tuned for more. Definitely trying to build a subscriber base. So 6 weeks ago, I started a version of what's called the Hard 75. And the Hard 75 in simple principle is you drink a bunch of water, you have to read a certain amount of self-development books every day, and you have to do some form of a diet with at least an hour and a half of working out. So on the diet side, I cut out wheat and pasta and sugar, and I've been doing intermittent fasting. And on the workout side, that's basically taking my volume up by a minimum of 50%, because typically 5 days a week I was doing an hour CrossFit class, and now I'm doing an hour and a half a day, although obviously not at the same rigor. So there's been this increase, and so at the beginning I decided what platform helps me to see my fitness development or my new training development. How is it affecting me physiologically from whatever I can see from all these different participants? What watch gives me the most, or what platform within a watch ecosystem gives me the most insight, not only into my load changing, my sheer volume of workout changing, but into my fitness growth. So that's what we're talking about, is what platforms display best the fitness and load development over time. And we're going to look at it not so much which has the mathematically best formula, and that's sort of subjective. I'm going to talk at the end about which one I think maybe has the most, insight or specific detail excellence. But we're talking about the whole broad range, how easy is it to understand the information? Are there sort of sideline features for overall training alongside it within the watch ecosystem? And so it's the best display, some of the best numbers, the best usability, actionable information, coupled with some of the sort of minor points. So we're going to list this in order of worst to best. And we're going to talk about basically the pros and cons I found in the experience, and then dive into the app and look at the pros and cons, and then we'll go to the next one on the lineup. So with that, let's dive in to number 5. Number 5 and last on the list is Coros. Now, I'm going to sort of go against what I just said. Coros has some good pros on the table. They do aerobic and anaerobic training effect evaluation from the workout you just did. They have good training load tracking. They have a good measurement for your fitness growth. They actually have a fitness measure for your fitness growth over time. They actually give you recovery time estimates to basically sort of recommend you take a certain period of time between one hard workout and another hard workout. And they give you a range of training load, which you can track to see where you're at in the overall development. That some flows into that. But the biggest con, and the reason they're at the bottom of the list, is that in order to activate any of the training metrics, you have to run 300 minutes. That's a lot of running. That's 10 days of running at 30 minutes a pop. That's It's just a lot of running. It's 30 days at 10 minutes a pop if you're not a runner. And then once you get that started, if I remember correctly from when I activated it and went through all that, you have like 42 days, so don't do it too slowly. It has to be certain range, like you have to run at steady state. You can't do intervals. You have to just go out, run steady state run for at least 10 minutes at a time. So that's the minimum amount, and you can't do anything, fancy like escalating your heart rate too much. But then once you do all that work, it starts the tracking then. It starts to build your fitness. It starts to build all the other components. So then you're looking at like 60 days to get up to your general fitness levels to be able to track any growth. And so it, to me, takes it out of the running, especially for non-runners. And this video is sort of focused on non-runners, not looking at that sort of, but looking at the high intensity interval training or, boot camp or burn boot camp, and F45, all those different aspects. So it's out of the running from a real contender, even though I did find some of the metrics after 4 months that was activated for a period of time and then used for a period of time. So with that, let's look at the app and let's talk about it. Alrighty folks, so this is Coros, and this is what they call the Evo Lab. This is what will not function or not appear to have metrics if you don't use the watch for a long period of time. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually go to a workout. This is just sort of the simple summary of information. You can see your training score in the middle right. That's your training load, like how much really load, like the epoch we talked about. And then in the bottom, it does give you an evaluation of aerobic training effect, how you bettered yourself physiologically, aerobically, and anaerobically. So they're one of the few that do both, and I really appreciate that. They also give you a recovery time workout to workout based on the rigor of the one workout, and it has a countdown timer on the watch and says a percentage of recovery estimate. So when you get into the base for load tracking, here's what it looks like. Now we have to go back a little bit because I sort of took them off the radar, in my opinion, because of this function that they have requirement for that much running. And because I don't have one of their watches, unfortunately. Can't afford all the watches all the time, or at all times. So anyway, this tracks, obviously your fatigue level from the workout, the load impact, and the base fitness. So if you even just sort of say, okay, well, how's my fitness growing? Here you have it. You can see your fitness development through the base fitness evaluation score, which I think is great. If only they didn't have all those running requirements, I think this would be a really useful metric. The other thing, so that's the fitness development over time in simple terms, is your training load. So you can see your average 7-day load and then your range. So you can see the recommended range there on each of these little pieces at some point in time based on your fitness level, what they're saying your range should be. I don't know how they calculate these metrics, but it's still useful that they give a clearly described range and that you can click on any part and see like what your average 7-day load is. So that is the Coros sort of platform in a simple nutshell. You can obviously see it is spelled out here if these were active numbers. If I was more recent, you could see little miniature versions of the load chart and your base scores. So if you look at that base fitness, that's where you could just sort of see, okay, what is my base fitness? And is it 31 tomorrow or is it 29? So you have some value there to take. So let's talk about the next up in the line. Coming in at number 4, so 5th was Coros. Coming in at number 4 is the Whoop. So the Whoop band is obviously not a watch, so that's on the con side. But let's talk about the pros. The pros are it gives good exertion scores for each workout, so a good evaluation of like how hard you pushed your fitness level in that workout. It gives you a total exertion across a whole day. So if you did 2 different workouts or if you did something in the morning and the night, you can see your total exertion rather than most all these watches you see exertion level 1 and exertion level for workout number 2. This gives you a total day exertion level. And then the other thing that's a pro is that it really obviously tries to look at your recovery from your heart rate variability and your sleep and take these combined pieces of data to tell you as you wake up each morning if you are ready for the next hard workout, if your body is still like, whoa, I need some more time, if you should go more slowly. So recommendations along that lines. They do give you charts, and there's a weekly report, and we'll look at some of these things, monthly report that shows you how your workouts related to your overall estimated recovery for that day, and if they were too hard or too soft for the amount of recovery that it looked like you had. But on the con side, there's really a few different kinds. So one, in simple terms, it doesn't have a real fitness growth tracker. It doesn't have like a training load, at least that I've found, and maybe I'm wrong, but it shows you a summary of your average strain today or this week versus the last 4 weeks or last whatever, the last week. So this week versus last week, this week versus all past weeks, just to see your averages. Are you in general straining more on a regular basis? Are you increasing the amount of strain? So you can glean that, but it doesn't show you your training development. It doesn't have any kind of measure of your fitness growth, doesn't have any sort of aspect that shows you your training load other than here's how much your average strain was. And the other thing that bugs me is that you can only see your day summary of strain. So you can't see a chart of workout to workout over the course of a week or over the course of a month to see if your strain in the individual workouts, it's higher on average than it was in the past. Obviously you can see the whole day and the day, the weekly average by day. But I have seen situations where I did a lot of yard work one day, had a really light workout, did a lot of yard work, and it had me at a higher strain level than a day when I did a brutal workout, which would have pushed me physiologically better, would have pushed my fitness higher in a definitive way, versus a lot of yard work and a lighter workout did not propel my fitness forward. And so it actually was not useful to have this, summary. If you did 12 workouts or one workout and a lot of moving around in that day, you'd have a summary. So I want to see what my workout scores are. So if I'm just looking at my particular sport, my particular endeavor, my CrossFit development, I want to see that particular score going up in the amount of strain that I have in that, not by daily summary. The other thing is that obviously it doesn't have anything else along with it. It is just minimal in some minor things. Is when it comes to recovery calculations, I think it does significantly overrate heart rate variability. And it's as I'm going through all this training and I'm more sore at different periods of time, I personally don't think the recovery scores it's giving me directly or more accurately physiologically relate. So I'm finding, other platforms, Garmin namely with the body battery and the sleep score, to be more accurate representations of how I'm feeling and even how I perform in the next workout. So there's been times where really good recovery on the Whoop because it's hyper weighting the heart rate variability, but I'm sore at the same time, and so I go into a workout and I'm having a hard time, and the reverse has been true. So with that, let's look at the platform and we'll talk from there. All right, so here's the Whoop, and you get your recovery score for there. This is like the summary page, but the main thing is you can see your strain score for your one individual workout at 8.1. So it gives you an evaluation. You can dive into it. It gives a simple number for this is your exertion level for this particular workout. So this is what it is. You can't see anything very much otherwise, and it's just a chart. So it's very simple, but it does give you like one simple exertion score, and it relates to your total strain for the day. So if you did nothing in a day, you might get a strain score of like 4.0 or 5.6 or something like that. But the one activity increased your strain volume over the course of the day. So you do have a summary of your strain per day, and you can see the summary of your strain per day over the course of the 7 days. So you can see a history of what your average strain, your daily exertion level for each day. This is where I have an issue because there's not a chart that shows me what my workout scores were. You have to actually go into every day and look at every history to try to figure it out. It doesn't give you a simple summary. So like if that 16.3 on Sunday was because I did a lot of yard work and then went on a casual run, that's not a good indication. It's an indication that I did a lot that day and I was probably really tired at the end of the day, but it's not a good indication of did I push my fitness to a new level by, in my particular sport of choice, really grinding harder and longer that would have a true physiological impact. Because you can get a 16.3 with just a very busy, slightly elevated heart rate day. And so it's not a good indicator, and it doesn't give me good information to see if I'm on average increasing the scores of each of my CrossFit workouts. So if you go into the health stats, this is where it gives you some other summary of information that has positives to it, but negatives as well. So you have your daily strain. But what this is it's Did you strain yourself in the optimal range based on how much recovery your body had going into the day? You woke up with a certain level of recovery, that should relate to a certain amount of strain for the day. Did you stay in the optimal balance? Now, obviously at the crux, if I don't quite agree with the recovery score, this is going to create a problem, but it also is just a chart of your relationship between like wellness and hard work, and that's fine, but it also doesn't help you to understand physiologically, are you improving, getting stronger, getting better, getting faster, getting truly fitter? It's just saying, are you straining yourself at a relative value for the last night's sleep? And then the other thing you can see, your average daily strain. So this is your average strain this week, and it just tracks every 7 days and dumps this in on Monday morning. Average strain this week versus your average strain last week or over the last 3 weeks. You know, it basically is just telling you you are trending upwards, or you're doing a little bit more work, but it's not quantifiable enough information to see if my fitness is growing over time. It's just saying I exerted myself more. This bottom chart is a little bit better at that. So you can see your average strain from last week in a particular sport versus your past 3 weeks, but I just want to see a weekly chart. So in the box fitness, you know, in the CrossFit, I did a little bit more exerting in that particular sport than I did in the last week. So that's a little bit helpful, but again, it's not a summary of information where I can see my fitness develop. So with that, let's talk about number 3. And in third place, there's still 2 better. This is going to come more as a surprise, but I'm going to put Garmin. Now, this is specifically looking at how the device and platform displays your fitness development and your training load over a period of time, or in whatever charts they choose to do. And in this particular facet, I think Garmin is in third place from the usefulness and the way it communicates the information on training load and overall fitness progression. Because like I did in that other video, like in the description below, you should watch it. It's about the training status, and that a lot of the recommendation metrics and the tracking metrics for how your fitness is evolving is purely based on running statistics or your VO2 max within a run. And it's not based on your overall fitness rigor expansion. So that is something to say. Now, a couple things I will say is that Garmin did just release a massive number of updates for the Fenix 6, old watches and new watches. So everybody got some really high quality updates, from the Fenix 7 and Epics down to the Fenix 6, down to the 940, the Forerunner 945, 245, 745, and even the Instinct 2 got some massive or significant updates when it comes to sleep score evaluation, when it comes to widgets and details. They are awesome at evolving in those things. And that's, maybe we'll put that at the top of the pro list. They are the top manufacturer on the development side of both fitness and wellness capabilities. You know, in that video that I put in the description below, there's a whole list of what is Garmin's leading the way on, and it's a long list. So, long list of things there. So it is, I do believe, the best overall stats, the best overall analytical stats, as they use the third party, which they purchased, was First Beat Analytics, in their aerobic and anaerobic training effect. So Coros offers aerobic and anaerobic training effect, but I don't feel like it's as accurate as Garmin's is. They have a exertion score, which they calculate as your training load for that one workout, which builds into your training load volume over time. It's your EPOC, your excess post-oxygen consumption, which is a good measure of how wiped you were from the workout. They have recovery time that's better than Coros. So Coros has recovery time workout to workout, but Garmin takes a multiple of factors. So it takes the exertion score, like the exertion level of that one workout, but then couples with it, how well did you sleep and how stressed out were you through heart rate variability tracking throughout the whole 24-hour period before. And so if you got terrible sleep, it will literally tell you a beep, you got to take 5 hours off before you go do any hard workouts or go take a nap. So it ties in all these physiological factors in helping you with your training program. It's obviously not exactly what we're looking at here, but it's an important function for growing your fitness. On the con side, the training load graph, the actual picture of what your training load looks like over a period of time, is just, it's overly simple, or it's just irksome to me, because I just feel like it could be so much better. It does show you your training load, but I also don't think they give you training load recommendations, like real guidance with how to evolve your training load. Now you have the training status, which is just, is your VO2 max going better relative to your overall load over the last 7 days, last 4 weeks, or whatever. But it doesn't give you good direction around, and it doesn't even spell it out. It gives you like a range of what your training load should be to stay like in the maintaining zone. And if you get towards the peak of the range, you're faced overtraining and undertraining. But it just doesn't tell you in the platform itself in a great way. Now this is only, the whole training load, all those things are only available in a certain period, few watches, and that's in that video down below. So the status itself, the training status, which tells you whether you're growing your fitness or undergrowing, is not helpful. That was a big factor in them getting a third place, is because it's based on running. It's based on VO2 max scores for running, and that's not helpful. So, and there's no visual display of fitness development, fitness growth, where you can see like a fitness score getting higher or lower based on all these other metrics, which is super helpful information. So with that, let's look at the Garmin platform, and then we'll come back together. And here you have Garmin. So in Garmin, you have a couple of simple things. You get a lot of stats with Garmin. You have the ability to look at lap times if you were counting your time per round, like if you were clicking off your lap tracker to see what your round splits were. But then you have your heart rate graph. If you push on some of these things, it'll go sideways and get really big. But you have your aerobic and anaerobic training effect. As it compares to Coros, it's the same type of thing. Coros just copied even how it looks. But in tracking a bunch of workouts on the Garmin versus the Coros platform, I have found this to feel, or even I would say quantifiably be more accurate. Meaning if it was a truly anaerobic more workout, it would give me a stronger score in Garmin. And aerobic workout, especially when doing CrossFit, because Coros would constantly, you take a 20-minute AMRAP where you're staying at an elevated heart rate. Well, you're not truly burning an anaerobic, because that's consumption of fat. I forget how I did a whole video on that, but it wasn't accurate as much as it was here. And you get your heart rate zones, you can get your temperature and respiration rate on some of the watches. So that's the breakdown. And then you go into the training status, which is your summary of all things training related. And you can see your VO2 max. It says maintaining based on my running VO2 max trend. There's my problem, is that this will change if my running VO2 max score goes down. Now, if you're not a runner, you don't like running, you don't run consistently, and you're doing some other sport, and then periodically you're going out on a 12-minute run, it might say you're not getting better in your VO2 max, and then it's going to say you're not performing well. So, and then the load and the calculation, this is one of the great things about Garmin, is you have all this specificity. I don't personally even need it or find it, but you can see the type of load you're putting on your body in 3 different categories: aerobic, highly aerobic, anaerobic, highly aerobic, and lowly aerobic, to see if you're balanced in your type of training. You can see your load scores. This is your epoch score. And for each of the individual workout, if you really pushed it, you can see your exertion level over the course of a long period of time. And then you have your 7-day load. This is the chart that irks me. It just irks me because even if I tap on it, it's not pulling up even the value. Oh, wait, I guess you have to hold. So you can hold and tap, but it doesn't give me the range value. I don't see the range. I guesstimate when I look to the left, okay, well, this is probably between this amount of load. They could tell me a lot more. They could tell me like you're getting near, focus on a load score of this for the next 3 days, and it would help me to have actionable information to grow my fitness and my overall load. So that is the Garmin platform. Let's talk about number 2. All right, so coming in second, that means there's one left to be first. Coming in second, I'm gonna put Suunto. And Suunto is got a lot of pros to it, but there's specific reasons why it's not in first, because we're just simply looking at useful information, well displayed, that helps you take it and run, feel like you have an idea, like a grasp of what your development looks like. So Suunto on the pro side, I do believe and feel it has the best analytical calculations for your fitness development. The best analytical estimate or analysis of your fitness and your load development from one hard workout to the next or over a long period of time. There's lots of good factors tied in that they do have some form of a recovery time, and we'll talk about that on the con side, a recovery time from one workout to the next. On the Suunto family of watches, I think almost all of them now have what's called resources, which is heart rate variability tracking, which is like Garmin's body battery, and it's still offered from First Beat. And so it does track your holistic health alongside your fitness growth and fitness development. So the thing that I like about the training load and the fitness analysis is it comes from Training Peaks, which is, again, like Garmin originally did with First Beat. It's an outside company that just runs training analytics, from my understanding. They just do training algorithms. They just look at heart rate measures, and so they have expertise. It's not like the in-house that Suunto is like trying to figure that out. They just outsource it, and they're really good in their analytical approach to all those things. And it's just it's overall simple display. Now on the con side, and this is sort of an odd con, their fitness evaluation, their training metric evaluation analytically is super hard to understand. And I feel like I graduated mechanical engineering. I feel like I should understand these things, but I will literally see these charts, and the charts don't quite tell the story in a visual, understandable way. Like the Training Peaks, I feel like it's really good stuff, and I can see the tracking and the trending is actually better than the number one. So at the same time, it's like I'll read the breakdown, and we'll look at it in a second, of like what each piece means. And I will be like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I still can't wrap my head around it. And we're talking weeks in, I'm in here now. As far as using Suunto and keeping up with the calculations, a long time that I'm tracking it. And it is just really hard to understand. So that really dings it in a felt way. So the other minor point is that it does give recommendation time one workout to the next, and it's always super low. So even a hard workout would come in with like a 9-hour recommendation time. That is totally inaccurate. And so at a very base level, you have to multiply the recommended recovery time times 2. You can use it, it's still there. It's based on some analytical aspect of how hard your workout was, but it's not accurate. It's at least half of what it should be to properly recover. So let's look at the app and look at the platform, and we'll come back together. Okay, so this is Suunto's offering. Now, technically, this is the sports tracker app. The Suunto looks exactly the same with some minor differences when you track workouts on the watch. So here's what the workout gives you in summary. It gives you a map, but we don't need that because we're not looking for the map, but it gives you this in the middle right, training stress score. So that is your workout exertion evaluation. You have your recovery time in the middle there. Again, 6 hours is not at all accurate, even for a lighter workout. You can see just the overall heart rate areas and heart rate zones across time. So there's your workout exertion score. It doesn't have a whole lot of other metrics to it, but in the top here you have your progress report, and it gives you a label, sort of like Garmin's training status, but actually just more analytically useful. This says productive training, and you can see it's based on multiple components. The most simple of which is that fitness score in the top left. Now they say CTL, and then fatigue is ATL, and form is TSB. And we'll look at where they explain that, and I just think, it's just not easy to understand, because technically you are pushing your fitness higher when your form is negative. I think that's just sort of fundamentally paradoxical. So here you can see an exact representation of my fitness over the last, I think it was from March 25th. You can see, boom, it goes up, and you can change the period to 6 weeks. And I've been doing this 6 weeks, and there it is. It's clearly displayed. Fitness growth from like 31 to 45. So if I was going to quantify that, that's like a 45% growth in my fitness, and you can see the form factor. And then it breaks it down in really simple form. So like this is your training status. You see at the top in the title, productive training. And then in the bottom, it says, here are the 4 training statuses you could do: losing fitness, keeping fit, productive training, and going too hard. And then it explains in the bottom about where these information come from. So basically, in simple terms, if your form is -10 or lower, you're pushing your fitness higher. If it's like, I think -10 to 15, you're maintaining. And if it's over 15, which means you're not working very hard, it's losing fitness. And so in all these factors, I can click on it and it'll say, chronic training load, acute training load. it's not easy to just grasp. I mean, the training stress score, that's easy because that's just a sheer number. But all the others just visually just not easy just to like absorb in a way that's useful to me. Although this little up arrow in the fitness score, fitness line side is one of the best because I can just see, okay, my fitness literally went up and it's calculated in a quantifiable metric. So with that, that's Suunto. Let's talk about number one. And now for the number one, in this specific facet, I'm going to give the prize to Polar. Now, Polar has a number of good pros to it. In simple terms, it has very easy to understand calculations. The calculations make sense, especially for the non-runner, because that is what we're here to track. They're not based on running, they're just based on exertion scores. It has the best visibility, the best visually easy to understand, and the best history summation of all your training load over time. Like the best. I just think, Garmin, why don't you just copy this? This is really good. Have your own analytics in there, but have the charts look just like this and work just like this, and we'll see it in a second. Along with that, Polar is one of the best at what they call the nightly recharge, which is a combination of both your neurological recovery and your sleep score. So you have a sleep score and you have an autonomic nervous system recovery score, and both those two together determine what they're going to say. You should not work out as hard. Literally, it'll say like, you should just do mobility today. Or it'll say, you know, go for it, you're fine. It'll give little recommendations. So they have some wellness features that directly tie into your training experience, which is a pro simply because that ties into your ability to evolve your training load and fitness level. What are the cons with the top dog in this category? There's only 4 weeks of real evaluation. So it's saying like, what was your intensity volume? So not like the time you spent, but the intensity exertion volume in the last 4 weeks, and what is it this week? And is in this last 7 days, more intensity in general than the average across the last 4 weeks. Again, it's super easy to understand. It's super easy to visually see it, and they display it beautifully. But at the same time, it's using ultra simple metrics and ultra simple calculations. So, you know, this is just like hard work this week versus hard work over the last 4 weeks. And simply, maybe that's all you need. Maybe you just need to know like how hard you push yourself this week versus your average of pushing yourself over 4 weeks. But for me, looking at sort of data and analytics all the time, I would like to know more. So that's a con. Another minor con is the Polar family of watches do lack a lot in the feature set, in the feature offering. They're below Suunto. They're probably on par, or they're maybe a little bit ahead of Coros, but when you got Suunto and you got Garmin, and if you do use a bunch of apps, you have Apple to do all these same things, but also have like this gargantuan watch experience. So it has the least features of all, and there's no workout recovery time. Workout to workout, you should take 22 hours off, and that's super irksome to me. And I list it as a con because they used to have it, and then it just disappeared. I found a workaround for it, and then that disappeared too. And it actually was pretty spot on or fair. There is some recovery analysis that you can do if you have some of the top end watch. It calls an orthostatic test, which requires a chest strap, requires you to sit and do a 3-minute test every single morning that tells you you are recovered, you are not recovered. I'm going to do a separate video on the orthostatic test. I haven't found it to be great. Not super great for me, although it is something at least that they have. So, all right, so here you have Polar. And you obviously see the summary of the day and tidbits, the detail of the day. But the biggest thing is in this little calendar icon, but it really is your fitness training history. You can see your volume of time accumulated by zone, heart rate zone, and your accumulated by overall time, and then you have your workouts in particular. So if you look at like the workouts itself, this gives you basically all your sort of simple stats. And if you're doing some non-running sport, you probably only need simple stats. And then in the middle is the Training Load Pro, but that is your load score for this particular workout. So it's a 50. This was a lighter day. You can see your heart rate graph over time, and the load score can be anywhere from like 0 to 1,000,000. But it really, for me, even with like I think the other day I did half Murph and I got a score of 107. So it was hard, but that's what I got. And so you see all your history. That's what you get when you go into the workout. So not a lot of specificity. You basically just get a load score, an exertion level, and your heart rate chart. But the bigger thing is when you go into the middle here, the cardio load in the middle section where it says maintaining. This is your fitness volume and your training over time, and you can see it continually getting better or getting worse. The red is your actual load score for that particular day, like how hard the workout was for your particular workout. And if you have more than one workout, you'll see a bunch of little blips like this. And it summarizes to a mass to your strain score for the day. So your strain in this category, when you see the 82 in purple, is the average daily strain over the last 7 days. So you take up the total number of workouts, the strain for each of those workouts, you add them all up and divide it by 7. So that's how hard you pushed yourself on average on a daily basis over the last 7 days. And then the tolerance is that same calculation over 4 weeks, so 28 days. So your average strain over the last 4 weeks is actually a display of how much fitness tolerance or fitness capability you have, like how much strain you can handle on a regular basis. And if your strain on the 7 days is higher than the tolerance over the last 28, then you're pushing your tolerance higher because you're pulling your 28-day average up. So you're pushing your fitness up. But this isn't even the biggest part. So you have this, it looks nice, it's a simple, you can sort of see it, but what the magic happens is when you go into the sort of towards the top to the right, the little arrows all pointing out. This is when the magic occurs to see your training and fitness development over a long period of time. So you can see your fitness growth over long periods of time where I had higher fitness in the history for every watch you've ever owned. I mean, I've used like 12 different watches. It's all there, and the blue water line is your fitness level. Now, technically, it's just your average strain over the last 40 or 28 days, so your last 4 weeks, so how much strain did you place on your body? But you can see it. You can see it visually growing. So, like from when I started this in, March 25th, my tolerance, my fitness level was 44, and then now it's in the mid 70s. So that's a huge growth that I can quantifiably track in my tolerance tracker. But I can also, it's just so easy to see if your blue water line is going down or going up. And if it is going up, you can calculate a percentage of how much it's gone up in a period of time to see how your fitness is going. So that is why I love this aspect of the Polar so much. Let's talk about it all in summary. In summary, what do I think overall? So we have Coros in last place because you have to be a runner. You have to love running. You have to do running. You have to go out and run in order to even access the stuff. You have Whoop in fourth place. You have Suunto in third place, Garmin in third place, Suunto in second, and Polar in first. When it comes to visually seeing your fitness development, your training load over time in a way that's simple and understandable and just, well compiled. But what do I think? Because, your fitness, when you buy a fitness watch, it equates to 1 to 2 hours of your life. And then there's 22 to 23 other hours of your life that involves like using a watch and what other functions would you get with it and what other benefits and features can you have alongside it. So there's a lot of things to say. So I will say one thing first is that if I was just looking at analytically who appears to me to have the best science, and I wasn't looking at how it's displayed and how easy it is for me to understand, I would actually give the win to Suunto. I just think that their analytics look much more advanced and to take into more factors, not just the last 4 weeks in a snapshot, but at the same, because Polar's just too simple. So I think they're analytically more advanced, but at the same time, just the fact you can't understand it, I think it's not usable in some ways because there's just this mental block from what am I reading and what does it mean? So that would be what analytically I think would be the winner. And then overall, the winner of the platform that I would suggest or I would take would be Garmin, because if you can get past the fact that training status should be probably just disregarded because it's really a status of are you becoming a better runner or a better cyclist, only those two categories. But if you can get past that, because that's not hard to get past, you can look at your training load graph over time, you can look at the balance of the training types, but they are so much more advanced across a broad spectrum of all things training and wellness. They just, in this update that just came out today, they're just continuing to get better, and they're updating watches from 2.5 years ago with new sleep analytics, and it's just like they're on the cutting edge. Their technology, like I said in that video down below, the list of the things they're good at and the things that differentiate them from like everybody else is pretty significant. So from a value and overall advancement vantage point, I would go with Garmin because I can get past some of those things. It irks me that their training load doesn't look better and that they don't have as much clear actionable information for non-runners, but the training load still is there. It's still tracking your training load over time so you can see your volume increase or decrease, and they give a million other things for everyday life in the function of the watch. So that is the rundown of who offers the best training load evaluation and fitness development evaluation for a non-runner perspective. It's the Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.